I'll go ahead and start with that. Let me just outline the question one more time so it's clear. So David is going to be doing a several-hour-a-day summer camp to teach Argentine tango to middle school or high school students. And he's wondering if I have any ideas on how to keep attention and keep focus with kids, and any resource materials about working with kids. And I don't know if any of you know this, but I actually ran a summer camp for kids as the first thing that I did when I decided to go pro. When I went from teaching kind of part-time to going, I want to do this full-time, that was what I did. And the reason why is because I actually got hired by UCSB, UC Santa Barbara, to teach a summer camp that they were holding, that they did a swing dance camp every year for kids between the ages of 8 and 15 years old. And most of them were on the younger age. I think we had like one 15-year-old, and then everybody else was between 8 and 12 years old. And I had them from 9 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, 5 days a week. And I did this for 2 weeks. Each week was a different set of kids. So really I had each group for 1 week, 5 days, 8 hours. Yeah, about 8 hours a day, 9 to 5, right? And that's all they said. They said, we're going to give you a budget. You know, I forget what the budget was. I think it was maybe like $2,000 to be able to hire my own staff and buy whatever I needed in order to make this, in order to make it a success, right? They gave me the money and they said, hire however many people you want with this money, and we'll get the kids for you. So I didn't actually have to get the kids. They had all the kids. All I had to do was set up the structure. And it was amazing. I was a little bit worried because, you know, dealing with kids, I mean, first, most kids don't want to learn to dance, especially this was 15 years ago before dance was popular, right? This was probably 2002 or 2003. So 12, 13 years ago. So I was worried I wouldn't be able to keep their attention. They wouldn't want to learn to dance, all these other things. But I said, yeah, let's go for it. Let's try it out. And it ended up being a huge success. I had about 30 to 40 kids each week. And I got the kids to actually learn an entire swing dance choreography, partner dance choreography, and perform it. And I also got them to learn at least one, maybe two. I think just one, but I can't remember. It was either one or two line dances as well that had to go with swing dancing. So solo dancing choreographies. And I taught them the social dance as much as I could within this time, right? And so I'll share with you guys kind of the structure that I set up for this so that you guys can see what you would want to do if you wanted to teach kids. And for those of you that maybe aren't that interested in running a whole summer camp, I think another important thing that I really learned by doing this is I learned how to keep people's focus. Because if you can keep kids' focus, you can keep anyone's focus, right? So I will be talking about kind of the tricks that I use to keep focus. And maybe we'll even talk about some of the dance games that I've come up with to keep people having fun throughout the time. So even if you don't want to run a dance camp, I think there's still going to be some interesting stuff in this for you. Again, feel free to pop in your questions in the chat window, and I'll get to them when appropriate. Okay, so I think the first thing that I thought about is, what's my schedule going to be? Or maybe my first thing was, what's my goals, right? And then I reverse engineered it from there. I went, okay, what's my goal? My overall goal is to get them to be able to do this choreography, right? And I had a choreography, I think it was 2.5 minutes long. And and it wasn't easy, but it wasn't that hard. It was some basics, you know. In Lindy Hop, we have like 3 swing outs in a circle. Then maybe we do 4 Charlestons, and then maybe we do 3 swing outs with a Texas Tommy, you know, or probably something like that. So I'm building this choreography. It was actually one of my choreographies that I've already done, and I just simplified and took out kind of the really tricky steps and substituted in some simpler steps. So I didn't have to create a brand new choreography. I was just teaching them something I'd already done. And the cool thing about that is that you can then show them your choreography. If you videotaped it, you can show the kids what you're gonna do with them. And that can get them excited, right? And actually, that's one of the things that I did at the beginning of every day. I forgot about this, is at the beginning of every day, I would show them some videos. Let me write that in here to what I'm gonna share with you guys. I would show them some videos of swing dancing, or if you're tango, show them some really cool videos of tango. And it doesn't have to be like I showed them the best of the best, you know, like I wanted to inspire them and get them like, wow, I want to do that, you know? So I showed them stuff with aerials and crazy tricks and stuff like that. And then I segued into like getting them into, okay, we're going to get you guys the basics of this, you know? But the first thing was I just looked at my goals. I said, I want to teach them partner dance. I want to teach them a whole choreography, so at the end of the week, they have something that they can show their parents and say, look, we did this. And I also figured a solo choreography was another good thing to do. And it also just worked out that I had time for that. If you think you have 40 hours to work with the kids, right, that was enough time to teach them more than one choreography. So I thought I'll teach them choreography, and then I teach them some social dancing, and we'll play some games and all that. Anyway, so my final, if I show you what my final choreography looked like, or my final schedule looked like, every day it was about the same thing. And let me see if I can share my screen with you guys. It started out with some icebreakers at the beginning of the day. Hold on. There we go. I'm going to share this screen with you. So you can see it started with some videos of not videos of, but videos of dancing, and then icebreakers to get to know each other on the first day and just to have fun, to get them out of their shell. So I'll quickly go through this whole thing, and then we'll go through a little bit more in detail in the sections that maybe are more important. So half hour of games to start. And then I would do solo choreography. And I structured that solo choreography to help with their partnered choreography. So the moves that we did in the solo choreography, not all of them, but a lot of them that we did were in the partner choreography as well. And then I just did them while you're actually holding hands with your partner or something like that. Now, I don't know what you could do in tango, because I don't know if you guys have any like solo stuff in tango. Like in Lindy Hop, we actually do have solo dances where we call it out. We say, okay, we're gonna do the shim shim, and everybody knows the choreography, or if they don't, they just try to follow along. So I don't know if tango has that, but if it doesn't, there's no reason why you couldn't introduce it as a concept and then just stick in some of the kind of cool things that you do in tango, but make them solo. And I think that's a smart thing to do if you have enough time to fit that into your schedule. So you could see there was a 45-minute session of solo choreography, and then we went to 45 minutes on practicing social dance skills. And I would use whatever the moves were that were in the partner choreography to talk about the social dance skills, right? And then we'd work on the actual choreography itself, and like and work on that choreography for about an hour. right? Then we actually had a lunch break where we went, we had lunch and they went swimming. I know not the best things to put together, but that's how it was set up. And that was the only part that was kind of already organized by the people that were hiring me. They said, okay, you have this time, but between 12 and 2, we're going to take them to lunch. Or actually, I took them to lunch and just supervised them while they swam and ate. And then back to working at 2 o'clock. They came back. We did some more icebreakers, maybe watched another video, just something that like gave them like, okay, we're getting settled back in and getting ready to learn again, but without immediately going into the learning. If you think about it, like segues, transitions are key to anything you do, right? So when you go from one thing to another, you always want to transition and think about the transition, choreograph that transition, even if it's something like a like going to lunch or coming back from lunch. And it can be as simple as just rounding everyone up and just saying, hey, you know, we're about to go to lunch, but before we go to lunch, I want us just to get one last hurrah, you know, or go team or something like that, where everybody put their hands in and does that. Something to kind of say, we're done with this section, now we're on to the next section, you know, so that you have transitions that get people ready for that next thing, kind of pre-frame their thinking for the next thing. Just like if you're gonna lead someone in a dance, right? You don't just lead the move, but you prep the move ahead of time, right? So that's what the icebreaker is. It's transitioning people, getting them ready to go into the next thing we're doing. And then I just kind of repeat the process from the beginning, doing another solo choreography, some social dance skills, and partner choreo. Now, the other thing to think about is like we were talking about, keeping their focus, because you'll notice each of these things, like the longest is an hour, the shortest is 30 minutes. But an hour is a really long time for a kid to stay focused, right? So during that hour, if we look at the partner choreo, there's a whole hour. We need to have little breaks in that hour to let them kind of refresh, right? And so I didn't have any specific, like when I went into this was my first time running something. So I didn't have anything specific that I was thinking I knew I had to do at those times. I just kind of went with, I'm going to teach them until they get restless. And when I notice they're starting to get restless, then I'm going to throw in some game or do something to get them focused again. Maybe we'll go watch a video, you know, and I had a few different things that I knew I could do, right? I could show them videos, right? I could give them a water break. That's a really easy one, but really important. I could play some kind of non-dance game like tag and or Simon Says, or anything that was non-dance related. I could get them to do. Simon Says is actually a really good one that you can actually do dance games as well. And if I could think of a dance game, I'd try to do a dance game, but sometimes it just need to be, I didn't have an idea and I just need to throw something in there that was non-dance related, just to give them a break. I'd also change the environment a lot. That's the other thing that I was doing. Oh, I think you guys have seen this enough. You'll notice there's actually little articles in this. There's a webpage, smoothsavoy.com/articles_dance_games. If you go to that website, and even if you just go to smoothsavoy.com and scroll over articles, there will be dance games. And it'll show you a whole bunch of dance games that I did. Some of them I explain, some of them I don't, but it'll give you an idea of what you can do for dance games. And maybe we'll talk about that in a second. So that's the thing that I would say is important. Or sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. Let me get back on track. What was I just talking about? It was having things to get them to kind of reset, or to give them a break from whatever I'm doing. And yes, I had these very official breaks at 10:15, 11 o'clock, different things like that. I had official breaks, but the other thing that I had was chances to just throw things in that would only take 2 to 5 minutes, right? A 2 to 5 minute thing that I could get them to refocus, right? And I might even tell them that's what the goal is. I'd be like, all right, you guys are seeming a little restless right now. And we still have like a half hour left to get this, to do this thing. But in order to give you guys yourselves a little break, we're going to play a game. And woohoo! All right, we're playing a game. And then again, I framed it. I pre-framed that game, where I prepped that game by telling them why, getting them ready. They play the game, and then boom, I finish it out, and I say, okay, let's get back to practicing, right? And by the way, David said there are definitely solo tango skills, right, that they can learn, and that's great. But I would put them into a choreography so that they're practicing these skills in a way that doesn't feel like they're just doing something with, like, when they're kids, they need more purpose. So even like, I know that certain tango skill and this is a skill, any dance, like just being able to twist your upper body, then your lower body, right? Well, that. And that could be something that you do for 8/8 counts, right? You have them actually just go upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body, other way, right? And by putting that into a choreography, and now walk forward, boom, walk backward, that kind of stuff. By putting it into a choreography, it's getting them to work on it, but it's also giving them a chance to have something that they can show off later, right? So think about how to put that into a choreography for them, to keep their focus, right? To keep them practicing it and learning and enjoying the process. Also, if it goes to the music, other things, that makes it more exciting. They're actually hearing music as they go. Another thing you might want to do is pick songs that they're going to be excited to dance to. With swing dancing, it was pretty easy. I could pick a song that was like, woohoo, like all fun and crazy, and they'd get along with it. So with tango, I don't know what you would do, but you want to pick a song that inspires them. I probably wouldn't pick an old recording with the scratchy sound to it, even though that might be traditional. It's not going to land with 90% of my audience. So let's see, let me go back to what other things would I recommend. So one other thing, okay, one of the things that you want to think about when you're planning your whole partner choreography, first is that everything else can be like that you teach can like try to pull from that choreography to teach those things, to teach the solo skills. Like, if you're doing a partner choreography in Lindy Hop, we have swing outs, 3 swing outs in a circle, right? So in solo dance, I'm going to teach them triple steps, and I'm going to teach them rock steps. So I'm going to be teaching them kind of the stuff that they need for the swing out. The swing out has triple steps and rock steps in it. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to change things up enough in the choreography that it seems interesting. And that's really easy in Lindy Hop because we have so many different things. Well, not so many. We have 3 different things at least that we can do. We can do 8 count, like swing outs and stuff like that. We can do 6 count moves, underarm turns and things like that. And then we can do Charleston. And then we can do solo stuff. Even though we're with our partner, we can do solo routines. So we really have 4 things to rotate through as we're doing our choreography. And I'm still going to kind of make the choreography make sense from a Lindy Hop standpoint. Like, in other words, and from a choreography standpoint, I'm not going to do one, then the other, then the other, then the other, because that doesn't make sense in most Lindy Hop music. I'm going to do 2 sections of swing outs, an A section and a B section of swing outs, and then I'm going to do a Charleston, and then I'm going to do a swing out section again, right? And then I'm going to do 2 6-count sections, and then I'm going to do a Charleston, and then another 6-count section, right? So I'm following the AABA structure of my Lindy Hop song in the phrases, if that makes sense. But the other thing that I'm also doing is that every time I teach a section, I spend the same amount of time on each section. The thing that I notice a lot of people when they're teaching choreographies is they teach the first section, right? They teach the first 4 8 counts. And then when they go to teach the next 4 8 counts, maybe they teach the next 4 8 counts, and then they have them practice the first 4 8 counts and the second 4 8 counts, right? And then the next time when they teach the third 4 8 counts, they have them practice the first 4, the second 4, and the third 4 8 counts, right? So now they've practiced the first 4 8 counts 3 times, the second 4 8 counts 2 times, and the third 4 8 counts 1 time. And it progresses, and so they get really good at the beginning, okay in the middle, worse and worse as it goes along because they practice it less, right? And so for me, it's really important that I spend the same amount of time on each section. So if I spend 5 minutes of them learning the first section and 5 minutes of them practicing the first section, then I need to spend 5 minutes of them learning the second section and 5 minutes of them just practicing the second section, right? Don't practice the first and the second, practice the second, and then the third and the fourth and so on, so that they practice each section a certain amount of time. There is one little trick though that's so important to this that people forget, and that's the transition, right? So, and that's why people usually practice in this way of like teaching the first section and then practicing it, teaching the second section, then practicing the first and the second together, because they want the transition to go smoothly. However, the only thing they need is the last move that transitions them into the next section, right? So if you teach them 4 8 counts and then you teach them another 4 8 counts, then they need the last 8 count of one move into the next section. They need to learn that, right? And how that connects. So when they go to the practice of the second section, I add on the last 8 count of the first section and say, okay, let's start with that and then go into the next thing, right? That way they're connecting the first section with the second section, right? And it's always important that that last move is something different that transitions, right? That's why, and it makes sense within a lot of music, is the last 8 count in that music is different as well. So in Lindy Hop, we have 3 swing outs and then a circle, and then we do something different, or we go back to the same thing and repeat, right? But the point is that circle is our transition move. So that when I practice that second section, I add on the circle. I say, okay, let's start with the circle. We do the circle, and now we do that second set that we already learned. And then I go on to the next section. And that's really all you need them to do, is learn the transition from one move into the next section. And then, and so you don't have to spend all the time practicing every single section. You just need to spend a little extra time on the transitions. Let's see. So I think those are kind of the key aspects that I think of right off the top of my head. And then the next thing is just to have a bunch of, what's the word? A bunch of games and icebreakers and things that you can do that will make them have fun, right? And so I'm gonna actually give you guys this link. Let's see. Now I'm gonna put a link in here, and I'm going to automatically redirect you guys in a new page. It should open up a new tab, but if for some reason it doesn't open up a new tab, just come back to this same spot and refresh this page. But it should just open a new tab for you guys. So, and I'm gonna wait, well, yeah, let's see. Let me know if it does have any problems, just write in the chat that you got redirected. And it didn't open a new tab, but it should open a new tab for everyone. Maybe if you're on a mobile, it might not work, I'm not sure. All right, let's see, I'm gonna try that out. So that page I just gave you guys is a bunch of dance games. And I'm about to go in that, but if there's any questions on what I've said so far, I want to go ahead and pop in the questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to go straight into some dance games, why we have them, how to lead them, and some different games that we have. And the thing I want you guys to think about with dance games is, like, this doesn't have to be, dance games aren't just for workshops, although they are really good for workshops. And if you've ever taken one of my workshops, you know I throw in a lot of games. But the games I choose, like, I've got tons of different games, and the games I choose depend on the situation, right? There's certain, and I kind of break them up into different categories. There's games that take less than a minute to explain. There might even be more categories. Let's say there's games that you can explain as once they're already playing them. So you can just get someone, and the game looks like this. I don't know what games I do like this right away, but I'm sure I have some. The game would be, all right, everybody follow me. Boom, and now I'm walking in a circle. Boom. So now I've already got them playing the game. I've got them doing something, and now I can explain the game as we go. In that case, you can say, okay, I want you guys to see if you can move slower than the person in front of you, right? And all of a sudden, everybody's moving really slow. But now you cannot stop. Every movement has to keep going. And I want you to look at the person in front of you, and if you see them stop, call it out. Say, stop, or something like that, right? And this is just me coming up with a game off the top of my head, right? But that's the idea, is that there's games that you can actually get them to start doing and then explain it as you go, right? And then there's games that take about a minute to explain, or less than a minute to explain. Then there's games that take less than 5 minutes to explain. And then there's games that take more than 5 minutes to explain. I don't know if there are even games that take that long that I would play. I think if it gets longer than 5 minutes, well, no, yeah, there are games that take longer than 5 minutes, but at that point, yeah, it's a different thing, and each one has its own situation, right? So a game that takes longer than 5 minutes to explain would be a game where they know coming ahead of time that this is the thing they're doing for the next hour, right? Like, we have the Lindy Olympics is one thing that that takes, you know, it's an hour-long set of a whole bunch of different games, but it takes 5 minutes to explain, or maybe 10 minutes to explain the setup, the whole system of how you're going to win, and the rules and things like that. So that's the type of thing where I would never just be like, okay, we're going to throw a dance game randomly in a class or something that takes more than 5 minutes to explain, unless it was already set up that this entire hour is devoted to this section, right? So ideally, it takes less than 5 minutes. Ideally, it takes, in a class situation, if it's something that I'm pulling out off the top of my head just to get them going, it should take less than 1 minute to explain. So if it's something where I need to give them a break, I need to give them something to give them to get them to reset, and it's just like randomly thrown in there. It needs to be something that takes less than a minute to explain. If it's something that I have planned for class for a very specific reason and I know why we're going there, then it could take maybe up to 5 minutes to explain. Although even 5 minutes is a little bit long. But you can also use these for dance nights, right? And same thing, in a dance night, like 5 minutes is the max that it should take to explain something that they're gonna do. They're then gonna spend 10 to 20 minutes playing, right? If they're only gonna spend 5 minutes playing it, it needs to take less than a minute to explain. If they're gonna take a whole hour playing it, then you can give them 5 minutes, right? So maybe think like it should definitely never take more than 1/5 the time that they're gonna spend doing it, right? So if they're gonna spend 5 minutes playing, it should not take more than a minute. If they're gonna spend 10 minutes playing, it should not take more than 2 minutes. And and the less it can be, the better. The less percent it can be, the better. So now, why do we play games? I mean, first off, they're fun, right? And to me, they're also great to get people interacting with each other on a different level than the norm. Like everybody interacts, grabs a dance with each other, or some people, leads don't necessarily interact with other leads. So having games that get them to interact is also a way to just build the community. And it's also just gonna create an atmosphere of fun, right? So I think it's important to have games, whether it be in your classes, in your dances, different reasons, like, or workshops or anything like that, any 3-hour period that you're bringing people together, right? Or even 1 hour period, something to get them to have fun during that time, I think is valuable. Yeah. Now, another thing that I'm going to say is that I know some people that try to lead a dance game and it doesn't work for whatever reason, and they go, oh, dance games suck, or this game sucks, or whatever. And so I think that it's important to recognize that the first time you try something, most likely it's not going to work out as well as you want it to. So you kind of have to be willing to go through failure, right, in order to get an awesome thing. So some of the dance games, like if you try them once, they might not work out the best possible. But if you do them a second time and just commit to improving whatever the things that you thought didn't work, it'll work a lot better the next time, right? And sometimes if something sucks, I just own up to it. Like I'm like, all right, we tried that game, didn't really work. Like, or I'll ask them, did you guys think it was fun or not? Like, because for me, it seemed like it didn't work that well. And sometimes they'll be like, well, yeah, it didn't work, but it was really fun. Who cares? Like, let's do it again. Sometimes they'll be like, yeah, okay, it didn't really work that well, but we want to try it again. Like, you know, we like the idea. And sometimes it'll just be like, yeah, it was a dud, toss that one. But you have to be willing to let something not work. And let them know, hey, I'm trying things out. And even with kids, that's the same thing. I mean, kids give you a lot more leeway with games and stuff. So like, it's not as big of a deal. I don't think you have to frame things and prep things as much with kids. But it's still important to know that like some things aren't going to work. Okay. The other, or they're not going to work the first time, I should say. So the next thing is, whenever you do a game, I kind of give a short description of the game for anyone that doesn't know the game, you know. And if they all know the game, I might still give a quick description just to remind them of what the game is, what the goal is, something like that. And this is more important for games that you already done a couple of times, and maybe there's a couple of new people in the group. But especially if there's anyone new, even if you have like 90% of the people know the game, if there's a couple people that don't know the game, you don't want to just start playing and make them feel that they're not included. They don't know what's going on. So like, I mean, if you're playing a game like rock, paper, scissors, all the kids know this game except maybe one kid doesn't, you know? So maybe you just ask, okay, who knows rock, paper, scissors? Almost everyone raises their hand, but one person doesn't. Say, okay, let me just catch this guy up. And then people don't mind if you say, you know, I'm re-explaining. I know most of you know it, but there's someone that doesn't. So let me explain what it is. And so that's the idea, is I give them an explanation of the game. And almost always, even if they know the game, I'm still giving them the explanation, just in case they forgot what it is, or they need a reminder, or there's someone else out there that doesn't know what it is. Another thing that I do is I try to make sure that there's a simple way to play the game. Like, depending on how complicated it is there a way to make it super easy for the people involved? And again, like, if you're doing a game with kids, you want to pick stuff that's super easy already. So this doesn't apply as much for kids, but if you're picking a game for adults that's maybe a little more complicated, like for me, I think of Steel Dancing as a game, but it's a little more complicated of a game, right? Steel Dancing, if you don't know what it is, it's when two people are dancing and one person steals the partner away from one of the people. And you can do this with everybody dancing, and then there's people going around stealing, and when you get stolen from, then you go and you steal back. So Steel Dancing is a game, and if I'm teaching it to a bunch of people and they're new to dance, then it becomes really complicated because they barely know their own steps, right? So in that case, I need to show them a really simple way to steal in that they can do without having to come up with some really cool move, right? So my more advanced dancers, they might know some really cool steals and stuff like that, but I need to get the people that are new to feel like it's easy to do this game, no problem. And I just show them, look, like if someone's dancing, it's as simple as just taking their hand and pulling them to you, right? And that's it. And everybody, oh, I can do that. Whereas if you just started them off on the game, they'd be like, I don't know how to do it. They don't have any example of how to steal in. They think it's complex or more hard than it has to be, right? And then with Steel Dancing, I'll also point out like the areas to be careful, because that one can be dangerous. If you just yank someone away from their partner, you get that wishbone effect where someone's getting pulled in both directions. So I might also mention like anything like that where, okay, also if you try to pull someone away and you get resistance, they don't come, then just let go. No big deal. Try to avoid the whole wishbone thing, you know, where you're pulling from two different directions on the same person. So that's something that I do, and that goes into like I explain the etiquette, the rules, or something that makes the game better. And for like Steel Dancing, there's a lot of etiquette involved, but I'm not going to give all the etiquette in every single time I play it. Like I'm going to give one piece of etiquette the first time I play the game, and then another piece another time I play the game. So I don't want to spend the entire time giving them rules or giving them how to make this game perfect. I want to get them playing whatever it is and then give them ideas as they go, right? And that's key. Like that's one thing why like I can run almost any dance game and I can explain it in less than a minute, because I don't think about like everything I need to explain to make the game perfect. I think about what do I need to get them started? What do I need to explain right now to get them started? And then once they've started, I'll explain things as we go. You know, if they break a rule, then I'll point out, okay, you guys, that rule, just so you guys know, from now on, that thing is no longer allowed, whatever they did at that point, you know. But I let them break the rules first before I give them those rules, you know. And sometimes like just get rid of the rules. A lot of times rules are there for unnecessary reasons. Let's see. So I think that's kind of the base things. The other thing that I want to do is anytime I'm leading a game, like I kind of think of it like I'm choreographing a dance, right? If I'm choreographing a dance, there's an intro to the dance, there's the dance section, there's the exit, right? And that's the same thing when I lead a game. Is there's some introduction to the game, then we play the game, and then there's an exit from the game, and I'm choreographing exactly how I'm going to do this. So it's not like, I see this so many times where people just go into it like blind dancing is one of the things that we do at our venue. And when I say, okay, we're going to dance blind, right? I spend, and this is something that we're going to do for like a whole hour. Everybody's going to be blindfolded for this next hour. That's the game we're playing, right? And I really think about like, what are the issues that are going to happen during the game? What are the issues that are going to happen before the game? What are the things that could happen after the game? How are we going to set this up so that like it actually works? You know, and some other people have taken this on and they like the idea and they're like, okay, let's do this blind dance game. And they announce it, they say we're going to do it, they show up, and then they start talking, explaining the thing, and then they have everyone do it, and that's it. That's what they do. And to me, that's not choreographed. That's just by the seat of the pants. That's just kind of going, I'm going to do something, let's see if it works. And most of the time it comes out being like, okay, but really like not that good. Like if someone did it again the exact same way, the people would be disappointed the second time. The first time they're all right with it because it's, what's the word? It's novel. It's novel, it's new, so it doesn't need to be perfect the first time you do it. But beyond the first time, you really need to start thinking about how are you going to set this up so that it goes really, really well. And that's what I do is when I lead a game, I think about how am I going to introduce this game? What is that 60 seconds that I'm going to talk about going to look like, right? I'm going to spend time thinking about that and share with them exactly what is needed in order to get this game started. And that's all I'm going to share with them. But I'm going to really spend some time thinking about what I'm going to share to get them to play the game, right? And then I'm also going to spend some time thinking about what are possible problems that are going to happen during this game. You know, with blind dancing, it could be that that people are going to bump into things, right? So how am I going to avoid that problem, right? Like with the poles, like we have some poles in our dance venue. I put pillows around those poles, right? And then I also have like what we call angels that are around the room that have their eyes open, that are just making sure nobody gets in close to anything that they could break or hurt. Nobody gets close to a lamp that they could break. Nobody gets close to a wall that they could run into, right? So I have these angels protecting areas. But I do spend some time thinking about what are potential problems, how am I going to address those, which ones do I need to address to the crowd, or which ones can I just address ahead of time. And different games, like, I don't know how to say this. I mean, different games have different amounts of time that you need to spend, but you do want to spend some time prepping whatever it is you're about to give the people, you know? And that's the same with the dance class. Like when I go into dance class, I do the same thing. I prep that class. For every 1 hour class that I hold, I prep for at least an hour ahead of time. Now, if I've already done that class, then I don't need to prep as much, but I still prep a little bit. I still spend 15 minutes thinking, how can I improve that class that I've already done? You know, same thing now that I do the blind dance night. Every time I do it, I spend a little bit of time going, how can I improve it for those people that have already done it? How do I make it feel even cooler, even better? For instance, maybe at the beginning of the dance night, before anyone ever shows up, I have those poles covered with pillows so that I don't have to take the time during the event to actually cover the pillows, right? It's just something that happens faster. It spends less time setting up the game. So I think prepping the games is a key aspect to whatever you're doing. Okay, so some games that we could play. If I were to just shoot out some different games, now I'll start with dance games because those are fun. The steel dance, we already mentioned what that is. An improv Big Apple is a great one. That's a solo dance. And the idea is everybody stands in a circle. Let me see. Everybody stands in a circle, and one person leads the move, and everybody else copies that move, right? And stick to your style of dance if you want. I mean, it can be fun to break out and do silly stuff too, but do like at least 50% stuff that makes sense in your dance, and then 50% stuff that's silly is a good ratio, or 60-40 or 75-25. I would have a mix, but if you watch, I might do something that's just silly, like, all right, let's everybody copy me and do this, right? And then go, okay, now copy me and do that move, which is a move that I do in my dance form, right? Okay, now do a silly move, shake your booty, right? And now do just side, hold, and one person's leading everyone. That's one type of Big Apple. Another type, though, is where one person leads everyone for a certain amount of time. So I'm leading everyone, and then someone else says, I want to lead everyone, and they jump in, and they like just step forward, maybe 2 steps into the circle, so they're clearly in front of everyone, and then they start leading something, and they lead some movement, you know, the Macarena, right? And everybody copies that. And there's a few different ways you can do this, but the essence is there's a circle of people following someone that's in the middle, whether it be one person the whole time, or whether it be randomly anybody can go in and lead, right? Or sometimes if people are afraid to jump in, I just point at people. I say, okay, you lead next, you lead next, you lead next. Or the easiest one that I find that's scary but still gets people going in is just to go in order. Okay, you get this 4 8 counts, then you get the next 4, then you get the next 4, and everybody gets 4 8s. And I always give them, remember, this is a dance game, so I've got to give them something easy. If they're scared, I say, if you're scared and you don't know what to do, all you have to do is walk in, wave, and walk out, right? Like, that counts as a move. You're allowed to do that. So that gives people that, okay, I have something that I can do that's simple. And you might not even give them a time limit. You can just say, step in, do your thing for however long, and then step out when you're done. Or the next person, if you've been in there for more than 4 8 counts, the next person's allowed to come in and tap you out. Something like that. Again, I've run it a lot of different ways. I don't think there's any one way that I would recommend over the others. The key aspect is that one person at a time is leading a whole bunch of people, and it's improv. It's not anything specific they have to do. They're just doing something, and everybody's copying them. So that's an improv Big Apple. That's what we call that. The next game that I play is called a call-out dance. And that is where, that one works if people actually know the moves, right? So you can actually call out the moves. So this is something you might do later on in a workshop or later on in a weekend where everybody knows, you know, the terms that you're using for the moves. So in Lindy Hop, we have swing out, circle, Charleston, and someone just calls it out and everybody does that move when they call it out, and they just keep doing it until they call out something different. So that's a call out dance. Then we have, in Lindy Hop, we have the Charleston line, which is similar to an improv Big Apple, but instead of everybody in a circle, everybody's in line format. So everybody's lined up in one line like this, and then a second line facing. So there are two lines kind of facing each other. And honestly, like then someone does the moves and everybody copies them. And usually in that one, I call out the move and I do the move, just because that's how I've run it before, and it makes it feel a little different than doing a Big Apple where there's nobody calling out the moves. I think like it's interesting because you can do that same thing. You can do a Charleston line and an improv Big Apple in the same dance night or workshop or whatever you want, and it feels different, even though it's basically the same thing. Someone's doing something and everybody else is copying them, but the structure is set up differently. We're set up in a line instead of a circle, right? We're doing all Charleston steps instead of lots of different steps, right? Or all one move and little variations of one move, but you don't even have to do just one move. You could just pick up random stuff. Right, and being in a line also encourages different things than in a circle. When you're in a circle, you can have people rotate around the circle as a move, like everybody walk in the circle direction. Whereas when you're in two lines, you can actually have them switch and transition back and forth, like kind of doing this kind of thing where they're crossing in between each other. So your movements just come up. You come up with different things by being in different setups. But it's basically the same game. What's another game? I mean, line dances are games as well, in my opinion, because they're group activities, right? So a line dance is something where everybody does the same thing and it's choreographed. Everybody already knows it. Maybe a few people don't, but the majority of people know it. And it's a community activity. It's something that's different than what they're normally doing. A slow jam is another great thing, or a jam circle in general. A jam circle is the idea where everybody is in a circle and one couple goes in the middle and everyone else isn't dancing. Maybe they're clapping or doing something, but basically they're watching the other person show off, right? So somebody goes in the middle, they shows off the new move that they just learned, and everybody goes, yeah, and cheers for them or whatever. And then someone else comes in and tries to do another move, or maybe they do the same move, but they try to like top it by making it a little better by adding something onto it or something like that. But the idea is like, it's basically a chance for people to kind of show off and everybody to cheer for them. And usually in the Lindy Hop community, it's done like really fast stuff. You do something really like fast songs and everything's fast, but I've done, like in some communities, I've done slow jams where we play really slow songs and people come out with really cool stuff that's slow. So to me, that's another possible dance game you can do. A snowball is another fun game where basically you start out with one couple dancing and then you say snowball and that couple breaks up and grabs two other people. And then now there's two couples dancing. You say snowball and they break up and they get four people. Now 4 couples are dancing, and it just builds and builds until you have like a snowball rolling. It just builds more people dancing until everybody in the room is dancing. And then you call snowball and they just change partners. So that's fun, easy game you can play. Obviously, like these are all dance games, but you can, if you're doing a workshop with kids, you can even come up with non-dance games like Simon Says, you know, and you can make that one a dance game, right? You can be like, Simon Says, do a Charleston, or Simon Says, walk forward. Simon Says, walk backward. Simon Says, dance to the music. Simon Says, don't dance to the music. Move, but try not to dance to the music, right? Try to be offbeat or something. Or, of course, with Simon Says, you also say things without saying Simon Says. But so you can make it a dance game, but you could even just do a non-dance game. Rock, paper, scissors is fun. It's just, it's not a dance game, right? You don't have to do a dance game. But you can also turn rock, paper, scissors into a dance game, right? And I've done that where I do bear, crane, snake. So, and this is how I lead it. If you want to do this with me, I recommend doing this with me. So I'm going to lead you through this game real quick. So if you're at your computer, just put down your pen. Actually, you probably don't even need to put down your pen or anything. Just do what I'm doing right now. It'll help you remember this game so that you can lead it later. Okay, so do this with me. Whenever I say bear, I want you to go roar. Okay, so bear, roar. Right, and this is literally how I teach people to do this. I'm teaching you the same way I would teach a whole group, and they all come back with me. I say bear, they go roar. Right, now I say crane, they all go whoop. Do this with me, crane, whoop. Right, so it's really just whoop, putting your hands like that, and you lead the group to do the same thing. Now you go bear, roar, crane, whoop. Everybody does it with you. Then you say snakes. Right, snake is 2 fingers going like this towards the other person's eyes, right? So we have snakes, right? And do it with me, snakes. Bear, roar, crane, whoop, snakes. Crane, whoop, snakes. Bear, roar, snakes. Crane, whoop. And that's literally, I do it about that long, maybe 2 or 3 more times. Let a minute to explain that, then I say, okay, now with a partner, kind of hard to show this without a partner, but let's say this is my dance partner here. If my partner does bear, right, and I do snake, I win because I poke him in the eyes, right? But if he does crane, right, then I lose because I can't poke him, right? And if he does crane and I do bear, I win because I can eat him. So the bear beats the crane beats the snake, and the snake beats the bear because it can poke it in the eyes. And actually, I reversed the order of explaining it. I didn't explain it the order that I would there, but it doesn't really matter. The only thing I usually do is I save the poke in the eyes for the end because people don't expect it. Or sorry, not the poke in the eyes. I save the not getting poked in the eyes for the end. So I usually go with bear beats crane. Explain that because that's obvious. The bear eats the crane, and the crane's just like this and rah, right? And then the snake beats the bear because it pokes it in the eyes. And then the last thing I say, now the crane beats the snake because the snake can't poke him in the eyes. And then I wrap up by just saying, look, really easy to remember. If you get poked in the eyes, you lose, right? Unless you, of course, there's ties. You can tie as well. Anyway, and then I get them going, and I play a song. And when the song, and then I pause the song or I mute the song. And when the music goes away, everybody has to go into one of these 3 poses with their partner, right? And whoever wins that pose wins that rock, paper, scissors, or bear, crane, snake. That is a great game to get the energy up. It takes a minute to explain, and it gets people really excited. It probably takes between 1 and 2 minutes to explain because you do want them to practice it a couple of times doing the rahs and things like that. So I don't know, it probably took me 3 or 4 minutes, but I would probably speed it up just a little bit. I mean, if you just look at from the point when I started doing the rar thing to the point where I did this, or sorry, not that, to the point where I said, I forget, I don't know. I would have them practice it. I would explain which ones beat which ones, right? And then I would say that it happens, you're gonna go into one of these poses whenever the music stops. And then I get them dancing. And that's all you need to explain at that point. They might ask a question or something, but I'm just gonna say, let's try it and we'll figure it out as we go, right? So for me, that's bear, crane, snake. There's you'll see a whole bunch other, if you go to that page, you'll see a lot of other dance games. You can see some contests. Those are also fun to do. You'll see some dance games that were created from non-dance concepts, like what we just did there was the rock, paper, scissors was a non-dance game, and I turned it into a dance game. But also just icebreakers. Another thing that you can do that's not a dance game is just like the name game, where you do where you say your name and you do something at the same time. So you say Andrew, right? Or Todd, or Andrea is just standing up, whatever. So you do an action and you say your name, and then and the way the game is played is that you always start by saying your name and doing your action, and then you pass the game you pass it to someone else by saying their name and doing their action. So I might say Andrew and then Todd, and now it's Todd's turn. Todd would say Todd and then Andrea, and then Andrea goes Andrea and then Andrew. Right? But it doesn't have to go in order. You can pick whoever you want, and all you have to do is get everyone to do their name so that everybody knows what their name is and their action is, and then get the thing started, right? And then it just kind of bounces around. And that's a really fun icebreaker. It gets people to know each other, but it doesn't, but it's not necessarily a dance game. Although, again, you could make this a dance game by just having the action be a dance move instead of a regular, whatever, wave of the hand or whatever action. I would start creating your own games, have tons of games. I probably have over 100 games that I've played it in my 15 years of dancing. And there's probably 30 of them up on that page that I just gave you guys, which again is smoothsavoy.com, and then just hover under articles, dance games, and that's it. That's all you have to do. I mean, even if you were probably to search Andrew Sutton dance games, it'd probably come up in your Google search results as well. Come up with those games, come up with your own games, just start playing around with stuff. And that's a great way to keep the energy up, keep focus, especially with kids. With kids, the more games you have ready to play at any moment, the better. And the more, the shorter the explanation you need for the game, the better, right? Some games will take longer to explain. Those aren't the games that you want to just pull out randomly. Those are the games that you want to schedule time in for and say, I know this is what we're doing for this hour. Yeah. And if there's any questions on any of that, pop it in. Otherwise, I think we're at time. It's 1:04, so I'm going to call it for the day. Yeah, all right. I'm not seeing any last questions. I think it's been about 30 seconds, which I always wait about 30 seconds because there's a delay from when I speak versus when you guys hear what I say. Somewhere between 15 and 30-second delay, so I need to give some time. But it looks like we're all good. All right, so Dance Ninjas out.